Welcome to the Tory Burch Foundation Small Business Webinar Series. My name is Sahara Lake. I'm the Programs Manager with the Foundation. We are excited to have you, and I'm excited to join you all for another session today. Before we get started, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Campaign Monitor, which is a global technology company focused on email marketing. They have helped make today's series possible, and we really thank them for their support. And now I would like to introduce our speaker. Her name is Erica Tebbins, and Erica is a sales strategist for rebels who reject the status quo. I love that, Erica. She works with service providers, consultants, and coaches to create custom growth plans that avoid complex systems, sleazy sales tactics, and burnout. And she is also the host of a business podcast called Sell It Sister. So we are thrilled to have Erica today to talk with us about sales strategy. So a little bit of housekeeping on how today's going to run. I'm going to turn it over in a bit to Erica to go through her presentation. During the presentation, please utilize the Q&A function to ask any questions, and then we will moderate a Q&A at the end, and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. Please keep the chat for reactions, talking with each other, but please put your questions in the Q&A box so we can make sure we can source those at the end. And with that, Erica, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I know the Tory Burch Foundation is such an amazing organization, so I really, really appreciate you inviting me on to share with your members. So yeah, let's get going. I would love to know, tell me, if you have a thought, a feeling, an emotion about sales, about selling, drop it in the chat. I would love to hear it. I feel very confident that by the end of this, that you will feel better about selling than you might already. As my clients always say, I make selling simple and fun. Oh, we got stressful. Oh no, yes, you're certainly not alone in that. So let me just minimize my little, there we go. Perfect. Oh, are we not, is it not going? There we go. Okay. As was already mentioned, a little bit about me. I'm Erica, she, her, marketing strategist and sales coach. I typically work with established entrepreneurs who want to smash through income ceilings in radically simple ways without burning out, compromising their values, or settling for anything less than their next level of success. I have been running various businesses of all kinds and sizes, from solo operations to multi-million-dollar retail teams, for almost the past 20 years. And I know there is no one perfect way to operate a successful, thriving business, only the one that is perfectly aligned with your strengths, values, and visions. And today we are going to be talking about attracting in the best fit people to your business, nurturing them, building relationships with them, and then having them become clients. So it's really important for me to share my values first, since values are such a big part of the work that I do with my clients. I value honesty and integrity above all else, which is why everything I teach is based on experience rather than theory. So either my experience or my experience working with hundreds and hundreds of other entrepreneurs. I am a big believer that when you have really solid, proven strategies and you pair that with simple, doable tactics, that is where the money magic happens. I'm also really passionate about what I do, because helping people run thriving businesses that are really profitable is powerful, right? Because, like it or not, money is power in this world. And running a successful, financially sound business that serves its clients well and doesn't exploit or exhaust anyone is a form of revolution. So I want more people to have louder voices and more choices in their life. And entrepreneurship is a really powerful vehicle for that. So I want to share that I like to think of selling like dating a little bit, right? So if you're if you're dating on a dating app or anything like that, you're not just gonna swipe, match with a person, and then you're engaged that night. Most likely, I'm sure it's happened, but it's probably not generally what's going to happen, right? So really instead you want to be putting out, who you want to attract, right? You're crafting your bio in a way so that you are going to be attracting people who have a better likelihood of being a good match, right? And then you're going to get to know them. You're going to date them for a bit. And then maybe if it feels right, you're going to commit to something more. So selling and marketing, it's really, really similar. So when we are talking about attracting the right people, you want to get really clear on who you serve, what they're struggling with, what you or what they want that you help them with, and how you can serve them really well so that you can work with the best clients. Then you want to give those people, once they're aware that you exist, you want to give them a chance to know about you and what you do. And you can leverage your web presence and really prioritize connection building to build the trust that is needed before somebody feels comfortable enough to buy. And then when we're talking about conversions, it's really important to confidently speak to the benefits of working with you without ever feeling like you're having to convince somebody to pay you, because they'll just know that it's a perfect match. And we're going to go into more detail about each of these. So one thing that I always say, my clients know I'm sort of famous for saying this, is attract the best, repel the rest. So this can seem counterintuitive, but I promise you it's not, because we are not meant to work with everyone, right? So a lot of times why people feel really weird about selling is, we've all gotten those DMs from the people who we either have never met or we haven't spoken to in 15 years, and they're trying to pitch us something and it feels really weird. Or, we go to buy a car or something and we feel like we're not being really listened to. We're just trying to be sold to, and it doesn't feel good, right? So often how I like to talk about that kind of method is sort of like a spray and pray, right? You're just trying to work on a numbers game where you're just trying to talk to anyone, you're trying to convince them just so that you can make a sale. And really good, comfortable connection-based sales practices do not require that of you at all. Instead, first, again, if we go back to thinking about, the dating analogy, get really clear on your values and your non-negotiables. This is what you really want to always be willing to kind of showcase in your brand. Also, really think about why your work is valuable and for whom, right? Because again, our work isn't going to be the best for anyone or for everyone. Even if technically anyone could buy whatever it is that we're selling, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are what I like to call our perfect fit clients. It can also be really helpful to think about who isn't a good fit and why, because then that way, again, you can sprinkle things into your marketing, into your content that allow people to self-select on their own before you would even get on a sales call. And even if you don't do sales calls, even if somebody can just click buy now, this is going to save you a lot of customer service headache later, because the wrong people won't be buying what you are selling. It's also really good to think about your positioning in your industry, right? Because even if you sell funny coffee mugs, you probably have like a niche or an angle, something that sets you apart from other people that sell funny coffee mugs. And then also the core message that you want to get across in your brand. Ultimately, what we want to do when we know these things is in our messaging, in our brand positioning and our messaging and our content, is we want to accurately convey these really important things about us and about what we do so that we are attracting, again, the right people. So we're going to talk about an actual sales conversation later on, but one of the things I hear most from people is, what about objections, right? How do I overcome objections? How do I close the sale? Well, a big reason why sometimes sales calls don't go the way we might hope is that we're actually speaking to people who are not perfect fit clients. So the more that we can refine our messaging, that is, connecting with our potential clients, that is attracting the right people to us, the more closely we can get that to align with our most ideal clients, the better. The easier the whole process after is going to go. So this is really a lot less about knowing which, magazines they read or where they like to go on vacation or anything like that. Unless that is something very specific to what you do, I wouldn't stress out about knowing that too much. It's thinking more about what are they saying, thinking, feeling, doing, or possibly even not doing in relation to what you help them with. Again, the more specific you can speak to where they're at and how you are the perfect person to get them where they want to be, the better. So I like to think of attraction is not just sitting back and posting on social and waiting for the perfect people to always come our way and then just be ready with their credit cards to buy, right? Now that is possible, that will happen, but I really like to focus on building connections, because when you are connecting with people, they are going to be able to get a sense of who you are, what you're all about, what you do, what you could potentially help them with. And even if they are not a perfect fit for you, they might know other people who are, and they will be able to refer them to you. Or they might serve a similar clientele as you, and then you could become potential collaborators and help each other grow each other's businesses by sharing each other's audiences. So there are all different places where you can connect with people who might be potential clients or collaborators or referral partners. But also in these places and spaces where you're connecting, you can also learn more of those nuanced things about people, about your ideal clients, that you are then going to put back into your content and your messaging. So think of this like putting on your detective hat and getting really curious. So I've given a few examples here, but really, think about the places where you're in community, right? So if you're in community with other members of, the Tory Burch community, network with them, chat with them, maybe form a peer-led mastermind if you want. Go to different industry organization events, conferences, anything like that. If there are memberships for your niche, go and join them. And especially now with so many things being virtual, this is easier than ever to do. And this is also great, if you're have a client facing business and you're doing sales calls or you're doing intake forms or anything like that, really collect the words that people are saying so you can then put that back in to attract more future business really beautifully. Here's a really important reminder that people often overlook. Again, we don't want to be waiting around for people to find us. It is better, you will have more success if you are proactive and you get yourself in front of more people who would be perfect clients, collaborators, and connections. So this is something I like to think about all of the time is how can I get in front of my perfect fit people so that they know that I exist? Because one thing I always say to my clients as well, besides attract the best, repel the rest, is that people cannot buy what they don't know exists. And even if the thing that you do, even if you have tons and tons of competition, I promise your perfect fit people still want to know about you. They want to work with you. There are a lot of other people in the online space who do work similar to me, but my clients really vibe with me. And again, as you're connecting with people, this is not about, the like old school, just handing out business cards and making assumptions that people are going to want to work with you. It's about being genuine and generous because people can tell when, you're just trying to use them. So now people know about you. You want to nurture them, right? So we're going to allow people to get to know us and we are going to get to know them. And you can grow this connection with content. So there's so many ways to share your content, and I'll be sharing a few examples of those. but content really allows you to allow people to get to know you. It can give people some aha moments, some quick wins. They can learn about your values, your unique approach. If you have a signature process, you can share that. And these are things, like obviously social media, but if you have a blog, if you have a podcast, if even if you're just sharing articles on LinkedIn, that is all content where people can be getting nurtured by you. One thing that is also really important to note, and this is especially true for service based businesses or people who sell very specialized or niche products that are maybe like a new type of thing that you have invented that would not be common knowledge as to how it operates, it works. It's a really good idea to think about meeting your perfect people where they are at. So where they are at sort of in their customer journey, in their purchasing journey, in their pondering journey around what you do. And there are 3 examples here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each one, but also know that depending on what you do and your positioning and your overall messaging, you may not actually need to have all 3 types of content. But they are problem aware, solution aware, and then problem and solution aware. So problem aware would be like baseline information or awareness. So this might be something like, I help people to sell more of their stuff. So I might be talking about, hey, is this a sales problem or a marketing problem? And try to shine a spotlight on what is at the root of their problem. If somebody is just saying to me, I'm not getting as many clients as they want, well, that could be a marketing issue. It could be a sales issue. So I can create content around that. Now, they might know, no, it's not a marketing issue. It's something about my sales process because I get a lot of interest, but I'm not closing these sales calls, right? So they know what their problem is, but they might not be aware of a unique solution that I have that I could create content and explain that, right? Like, so you're getting a lot of leads, but you're not closing sales calls. Here might be 3 reasons why, right? That could be a blog post or a podcast episode. And then when somebody is problem and solution aware, those are usually people who are ready to invest, but they are just trying to find the right solution for them. So this is where showing things like case studies, testimonials, social proof, your signature process, your frameworks, anything like that will again allow people to see if you are going to match their desires for their problems right now. So where should you be sharing this? As I mentioned, there's all sorts of places that you can share your content. And I imagine with the landscape of social media and technology, these are only going to keep growing. So again, emailing your list, if you have an email list, sending them regular emails. Regular does not have to mean multiple times a week or even every week. Just, we don't want to only be emailing when we're trying to sell something, right? Because that never feels super fun. Unless you're a product-based business, then the rules are a little bit different. You can also have nurture or welcome sequences. So if you have free downloads that people can get from your site, you can set up an automated email sequence on the back end. Obviously, social media, SEO optimized blog posts. If you have a podcast, a YouTube channel, speaking to free or paid communities, doing your own self-hosted workshops, webinars, or summits, or being part of other people's summits. You can also guest on other people's platforms. Remember, I said earlier, talking about connecting and collaborating, right? So if people have free or paid communities or free or paid content platforms, you can share your expertise with their audience if you both serve the same people, but doing different things. Pinterest is another option. I kind of separate that out from social media because it works a little bit different than social media does. And then also, coffee chats and networking. Again, nowadays a virtual coffee chat is really, really common. So this doesn't mean that you're going to hop on a coffee chat and read someone a whole blog post. But what I mean is that you can really be, in the process of chatting with somebody, if you find, oh, I actually have like an idea for you. Can I share my suggestion, right? That is really powerful. And then also paid ads. So I predominantly work with people who do organic marketing, but I do have a few clients who do paid ads. And in that case, you're really just leveraging money as a way to reach more people on various platforms where you're advertising. So I realized that list unto itself is pretty large. And as I said, the landscape is only going to keep growing. So here's what I would strongly, strongly suggest is you are going to want to start small and be consistent with your both your content creation and your connection approach before you branch out. Because if you are trying to be all the places and do all the things, there's a really good chance, unless you have a really robust team that is helping you, that you will get really overwhelmed and could potentially burn out. So when I work with clients and we are coming up with their sales and marketing plans, I always like to think of 3 to 5 ways that you can consistently connect and nurture people for 90 days. So this is really important for a few reasons. Now, let's say you are much more established like me. I do more than 3 to 5 things in any given month. But that's, I have built up to it, right? So I have systems, I have processes, I have some team support in my business. So I can expand into new areas, right? So this would be something like maybe you pick one platform, like you say like, I'm going to be on Instagram, right? So I'm going to be on Instagram and I'm going to share smaller content bits there. And I'm also going to blog on my website. And I'm going to send emails to my email list. Well, you could write one really phenomenal blog post. You can break that up into smaller pieces for email that you send to your email list, and then you direct them to the larger blog post if they want to keep reading. You could break that out into micro content for Instagram, let's say, if that's where you're choosing to be. And that could suffice for a while. And then maybe, you're in some online communities, you're connecting with people, and then you're like, hey, maybe 3 times a month, you make room in your calendar for a coffee chat, right? Or for a networking event or something like that, where you're actually getting out there and you are connecting with more people, or you're being proactive on Instagram and you are getting in front of your perfect people there and you are interacting with their content. The reason that it's good to do this for 90 days, and when you're thinking about consistency doesn't necessarily mean the same exact thing every single day for an entire 90 days, but just like a regular rhythm or a cadence that you can track. Because then at the end of 90 days, what you're going to do is you're going to look back over what felt really good, what felt like it actually worked to move the needle forward for you. What did you maybe not love? Do you want to drop that? Do you want to tweak it? Do you want to add something new in the next 90 days? It's also really good, especially, if you sell a product, you probably have access to some really great software that can track purchasing trends for you. But if you are like me and have a more service-based consulting coaching style business, I always like to audit where my clients are coming from. So that means that every few months, I look at all the new clients I've brought in and I try to trace it back to where did I first connect with this person? And also, how long have we been connected for? Because this gives me really, really, really good data so that when I am continuing to do those activities, I'm not freaking out if I'm not immediately getting new leads. Because I know, we can never predict timing 100%, but I have a proven track record of if I do X, then Y happens. And then I get the client, right? So lastly, to kind of recap and also take us where we want to go next, which is the conversion, it's really good to think about leading your leads. So up until this point, we've already talked about building visibility, right? Getting in front of your perfect people. Again, it's not about getting in front of all of the people. It's getting in front of more of the right people. So when you hear social media strategists and experts say, it's not about the quantity of the followers you have on a social media platform, it's about the quality of social media followers you have. That's because of this, right? Because it's a lot better to have 500 people who are really engaged and really love what you have to say and enjoy your content and trust you and want to purchase from you whatever it is you have, than to have 5,000 people who are just very, lukewarm, right? So it's not about having fame in order to be successful, but you do need brand awareness. So again, when you're thinking about in your connection plan, where do I want to be more visible? Think really intentionally about like, where are your perfect people, right? Are they going to certain industry conferences? Are they hanging out in certain, groups online, anything like that, and go there. Number two, again, we're nurturing those new eyes. So people now know we exist. And then now we are going to build an actual authentic relationship with them. And depending on your niche and your offers, this can take some time. So like I said, when I'm doing a client audit, I might realize that, I have some people who I am working with now that I met back in a group container in 2018, right? Now, that doesn't mean that it takes everyone 4 years to work with me, but I also know that the seeds I'm planting now for connection definitely have room to pay off 4 years from now, right? And certain niches, especially things that are very sensitive, like if it's around money or health or fertility, I'm just thinking about some friends and clients of mine, is that if that is what you sell, if that is what you do, it's very likely that you're going to have a lot more silent observers, meaning you're going to be putting out content and people are not necessarily going to comment directly on your posts because it's very sensitive and they don't want other people to see them commenting. But doesn't mean that they're not there. It doesn't mean that they're not enjoying what you are putting out. So when you're thinking about auditing your own folks in that regard, you might find, and this is what some of my clients have found, is that people will be silently watching and waiting. And then one day out of nowhere, they are just on the call calendar or they've enrolled in the program or whatever. They just need time. So one of my clients I'm thinking about, she does money coaching and she's found it takes on average about 5 months from when people learn about her before they hire her. And they're usually very quiet observers until they hire her. So then we got to tell them what to do next because we cannot assume that they know. This is where a lot of people end up producing lots and lots of content and they feel like I'm working all of the time, right? But they're not actually connecting with the people who are resonating with their content. They're not intentionally building those relationships and they're not directly telling people either, in conversation or in their content, hey, if this is you, here is what I need you to do next. So when people trust you, they will want to work with you when it feels like the right fit. So whether that is, go check out a sales page, go to the application, book a call, whatever the next step is, we know because it's our business, we've set it all up, but we can't assume that they know, right? So now this is my Sleaze free sales method. This is the last thing I'm going to be sharing with you. And I don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to frantically take notes on this because I'm going to give you a link in a moment where you can actually download your own PDF of this for free to have it and reference it. So this is very, very easy to remember. This is my method. I've been using it and teaching it for years. So overall, we want to set the tone. So this is just in everything, right? This is in our brand, in our message, in our visuals, when we hop on a sales call with somebody, right? I always liken it to when you walk into a really nice like boutique and they welcome you, they greet you, they make you feel seen and welcome. We just kind of want to set the mood wherever we are showing up. Now, let's say you are in conversation with somebody. You're on a sales call, or maybe if you sell a physical product, you're actually talking to somebody, helping them figure out what is the product that is going to be best for them. So the A in sales is ask good questions. It's really, really, really important to always be asking good questions, even when we're just networking and connecting, like I was talking about at the beginning. It's good to practice good listening skills because we don't want to just sell somebody on something, right? We want to sell them the best solution for them. Sometimes the best solution for them will not be you, right? But you might know somebody who is a perfect fit. And then you can be in integrity and say, I actually don't think that I have the best thing for you, but I think this person does. And I think that you should talk to them. Some of the good question asking can be done with a really good intake form. If you use a call scheduling program like Acuity or Calendly, you can set one of those up and get some really good info from them before you even hop on the call. Next up, we want to listen, limit, and lead. So as we're asking good questions and being a really good listener, we are not going to overwhelm them with, oh, these are the 5 different ways that I work with people, right? Based on what they've told you their needs are and what the ways that you work with people, you want to lead them to the right solution for them. This is really, really, really important because there's a saying, the confused mind says no. If we overwhelm somebody with too many options, they will just 9 times out of 10 be like, I don't know. And then they don't make a decision, right? I'm sure you could think of examples where this has happened in your own life too. Then you've gotten to this point, you're like, aha, I know what I'm going to suggest for them. So before you do, just expect the yes, right? Even if it doesn't happen on the call, remind yourself you've been doing a good job. You've been a really good listener. You made them feel really welcome. So just take a deep breath because you're doing great. Lastly, you're going to suggest the 1 or 2 things that you feel like are the best fit options for them. So you're going to confidently and succinctly suggest the offer you think is right with them. You're going to lead with the benefits. So not all the fine details that can come later, but the benefits of that offer, why you think they're great for it. And then ask for their thoughts and stop talking. And if it helps, you can have something nearby like a glass of water, and you can just say, in your mind, hey, take a sip if that helps you to stop talking, because we can often get really uncomfortable in silence. So lastly, some important reminders. Nobody closes their sales calls 100% of the time. Sometimes people need time to think about it. They really, depending on the price point and everything or the commitment, they really do need some time to think about it, right? So a few things that can help: practice this with your friends, right? That's a really great one, first of all. Next up is keep a follow-up log. So many people lose out on opportunities for clients because they're just not following up with people. Either they don't know they need to or they're afraid to. Do not be afraid to follow up with people. Please, please, please do it. It will change your business. And then if you find that this is a chronic problem, you may need to assess if you need to adjust your positioning, your messaging, or offers, because maybe there is a disconnect that is happening early on that is attracting people to you that are not quite the right fit. So as I mentioned, I'm going to share a link in a second on how you can get that my No-Sleaze sales method for free. But I also wanted to let you know that I have a really special offer. So I have a mini course. It's really quick. It's only 90 minutes long, but it's my complete sleaze-free sales course with customizable conversation templates. And it works whether you sell a product or service or both. And I'm offering it for a special discount just for the folks here who have joined me for this webinar. You can use code Tory200. And the reason I'm telling you this now is because when you go to get your free No-Sleaze sales guide, it is going to redirect you to a page, and it's also going to email you information on that. So I wanted to give you a heads up about it. So you can get your free guide. And then if you're like, ooh, I am really ready, to learn sales once and for all, and to feel really comfortable and confident in sales conversations, definitely take advantage of that using the Tory 200 code. And lastly, be sure to follow me on Instagram. It's where I hang out the most. I do have a LinkedIn account, just don't check it as much. So if you have enjoyed this, come and say hi. I really do. I'm like such an extrovert. I really love connecting with people and making new friends. You can also subscribe on any podcast platform to my weekly Sell It Sister podcast. I have over 100 episodes, so there's plenty to learn from over there around sales and marketing. And then lastly, if you want to learn more about me or how I work with clients, you can check out ericatebbins.com. I'm super excited for Q&A now.
Great, Erica, that was awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm going to be asking a combination of questions that people submitted when they registered and get to some of the ones in the Q&A box as well.
Okay.
But I want to start with one that's kind of talking about lead generation. That was a pre-submitted question.
Okay.
And the question was, what is the best way to get the initial call or to find the contact?
Ooh, that's great. That's great. Okay. So this is one, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but this is usually where things tend to be challenging for folks, right? Because they are, again, they're, posting a lot of content, but if people aren't seeing that content, then they can't be nurtured by it. They can't enjoy it, all of those things. So I think it's really important to think about, if you have, other people in your industry who do what you do or who do something similar to what you do or for the same type of clientele, but you approach your work in different ways, it's really good. It's a good idea to collaborate with them to do, it could just be like a free training or, workshop, something that you do together, because it will allow you to leverage each other's audiences to build your visibility. Other things you can do would be like to pitch yourself on podcasts that your ideal clients listen to, that see if there are, any guest blogs that you could do, if you could attend any events, if you can pitch yourself for speaking at different events, like industry events, anything like that. It's really all about thinking, where are the places that my perfect people are, and getting in front of them. And again, on social media, there are ways to do this as well. Whether you're on LinkedIn or you're on Instagram or you're on Facebook, where you are authentically connecting with other people with no strings attached, because you really never know what is going to come from that relationship.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Tina asked, I know that we're starting to, come out of such a virtual world, but I think, as you said, Erica, in your presentation, like a virtual coffee chat is really common. And Tina said, well, she shared, I'm finding it very difficult selling virtually via Zoom meetings. And I'm wondering if you have any tips on what it's like, different tactics for pitching in a virtual setting versus a more in-person setting.
Yeah. So I would say, I'm also a big fan of, if you're doing any online networking, like whether it's more formal or you are just maybe putting something together yourself, or you're doing like a co-working where people can get to know each other. I find that when I've gotten clients from virtual networking in the last few years, it's rarely that somebody immediately from the virtual networking is like in my discovery call calendar. It's more about me being proactive and saying like, hey, I want to get to know you better. I have a link for a coffee chat. If you would be interested, I would love to learn more about you and how I can support you, and et cetera, et cetera. And then they can choose if they want to book in. And then through there, it's really about like building the relationship and seeing if there's any type of good fit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Getting into more conversation, like what to do when you're in these conversations. So any techniques for those of us who feel awkward on sales calls or are a little more introverted?
Yeah. So I love that you asked that, because even though I'm extroverted, most of my clients are introverted. So this is where I find that it can be really good. Like a lot of people are on social media nowadays and stuff. So there's a really good chance that a lot of your sales calls are going to be people who are not just like out of the blue, right? You've probably had some sort of interaction with them before. Otherwise, if not, look them up on social, get to learn a little bit about them. And also just know that when we are on sales calls, when we show up to a sales call as a potential buyer, we tend to be nervous too, right? Because we don't know, is this person gonna pressure us? Is it gonna be awkward? Uh, there's all sorts of ways that both parties can be uncomfortable. So I think just from the get-go, saying hey, the purpose of this call is I want to learn more about you. I want to learn if you're a right fit for what I do. If so, we can talk about it at the end. You don't have to make any decisions right now. We can, and just kind of put them at ease and then get their buy-in, is that okay? Does that sound good? And then most people will be like, yeah, of course. And so, or, if they're thinking that it's a free coaching call or something, then also the expectation has been set, unless you have offered free coaching at the top of it or something like that, then they kind of know, and that expectation is
there. That was another question that someone asked, actually, Erica, how should entrepreneurs approach free consultation differently than sales calls? So your guidance for that would be setting the expectation at the top of the call for what people should be expecting.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes, let's say you are earlier on, or you're in a pivot, and you actually want to do some voice of the customer research to learn, everything I talked about at the beginning, voice of the customer research is great. Asking people, 20 minutes of your time, I'm going to ask you a few questions. I think you're my ideal client. Not going to pitch you anything. I just really want to learn, because again, when we have it in people's own words, it's really helpful for whatever it is that we're creating on the back end. And so right there, you can just let them know, as part of helping me, I am going to give you some free advice around this area as a thank you. But that way the expectation is right there. Or if you're I'm going to do, I'm going to do 10 free coaching sessions because it's going to help me get better at what I do, learn more about my ideal clients, different things like that. Again, just have it be understood at the outset what it is or what it isn't, right? And same thing with a sales call, discovery call, whatever you want to call it. It also needs to be understood for both parties that you are going to be talking about ways that you could potentially work together in a paid capacity, and it's not just going to be free coaching.
Yeah, expectations are important. Yeah. A question that just came in the Q&A from Tadana, I hope I'm saying that right. How do you know whether you need to change your messaging or adjust your positioning?
Yeah. Okay, that's a really great question. So I would say if you find that you are constantly having sales calls and it's just not closing, it's not happening, and you're where is the disconnect? If you go back to getting really curious and thinking about what were the things that I thought would be great about why this person would be great for this service I have, and then were there things that they said that maybe made you realize oh, maybe they're not actually, maybe this isn't quite right, there's something off here. Or another way to approach this is, if you're actually working with clients, another way to do a client audit and to keep refining is to think about who were the absolute best people that you've worked with, who got the best results and everything. And then think about them compared to your other clients, even if they were great clients. What were the really small differentiators between the two that made one person more poised for larger transformation, greater results, whatever, versus the other person? Because then you can start to refine again a little bit more who you are speaking to. A lot of times positioning will come into play, especially if you're thinking about doing a really large pricing increase around your services. You might start to outprice your original target market, and then you need to reposition and come at it from a different angle.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me as well.
Yeah. I would also say too, like if you have business friends, this is where it's great to be in community, because you can ask people, have people review your stuff, or if you're working with a coach or, a business mentor, have them review it, because they might see where things are mismatched that you don't.
Yes, fresh eyes always help. Looking fresh new eyes for sure. A question from Lauren, and pretty specific to your presentation that you just gave. What metrics do you suggest for tracking the 90 days and picking I lost the question.
I saw it. I saw it. Yeah.
I think you probably saw it, but yes, what are your suggestions there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I really like to track like where and how I am connecting with folks. So that might be some of the things I do would be, being a guest on other people's platforms, giving talks, hosting my own workshops or trainings, talking to people on social media. I have my own podcast that goes out. Anything where I am trying to get visible in front of more folks, even if I'm doing coffee chats or if I'm tracking discovery calls that need follow-up, I am going to track all of the places where I'm intentionally connecting with folks. And then at the end of 90 days, I'm going to see, what felt good, what felt like it worked, so on and so forth. So for me, one instance of this where it's like, it's something I keep doing because I love to keep doing it, but I'm not necessarily like getting millions of clients directly from my podcast. I love my podcast and I do get clients from it. But for me, my podcast is more of the nurturing component. So I'm meeting people, I'm letting them know, hey, I have this podcast, and then they can see if they resonate with my approach and all of that via the podcast. And then they can make a more confident investing decision when it comes to working with me. So for me, the way that I have my podcast structured is I'm not trying to like grow the numbers so massively so that I can get corporate sponsorships. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. It's just what I've chosen to do. But instead, I am over there. It's a lot more about quality than quantity and allowing that to be how I nurture my folks. But I really love to actually track my connection points and people I've connected with, because then I know every so often I'm going to go back and follow up with people, because sometimes when we connect with somebody, the timing just isn't quite right for them for whatever reason. But 3 months from now, 6 months from now, they might be in a different place and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you reached back out. Yes, I would love to work with you. Or if you're about to raise the price on an offer that you spoke about, you can reach back out to them one more time. Or if you have a new offer you've created that you think would be better for them, you can go ahead and reach back out and let them know.
And what tools are you using to do that type of tracking?
So this can be really wherever is going to work best for you. So this could be a Google Doc, Google Sheets, Excel, Trello. I use Notion for my business. So I just have a separate board where I go in and I have already set categories. So like an Airtable would also work. If you use that, you can set up different categories. So I would just, put in the date, I put in the person, I select, coffee chat, I put in any notes of things that I might want to remember, maybe any offers I think they could be potentially great for, or any like if I want to collaborate with them on something. And then I also give myself a date for when I should, follow up or whatever next steps need to happen.
Makes sense. Another pre-submitted question. How do you respond when one of the first questions the prospect asks is regarding cost?
Oh, yeah. So I would just say, I mean, it sort of depends on what you do, but I would just say, you can say what the price is, right? Like you don't necessarily have to keep it a secret. But you could also say, this is the cost, and depending on how they respond. I actually just had a sales call with somebody on Monday who I had told her the price. She was like, oh, that's about double kind of what I was thinking. And I said, that's fine. I want to chat with you anyways, because I have other ways that I work with people, right? So I still wanted to get to know her. I wanted to get to know about her business, because even if that offer is not quite right financially, I might have something else that is a better fit and I can meet her where she's at right now. And if I don't, then I would just suggest to somebody else. But also now I know, now we have made the connection, we've gotten to know each other. And again, who knows, 3 months, 6 months from now, her circumstances might be different. And then we've already had that connection and she can hop in then.
Yeah, that's a great approach. Another question from Tina here. What advice can you give to gain volume sales from large government contracts? I'm curious if you have any experience with that at all.
No, but
Okay.
I don't, but I actually have if you search Edem Spark, so IDEM Spark should come up. My friend Ann Yeti is amazing, and she helps people land really large corporate contacts. So she might be able to help you. And if you can't find her, just send me a DM on Instagram and I will link you to her account.
Appreciate you sharing your network with us, Erica.
Yeah.
Another question from Jennifer here. What are your thoughts about year-end feedback conversations with current clients? Or like, I think more generally, like, how do you get feedback from clients as you continue to, evolve your business?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So I think that there are a few ways. So depending on how you work and how you want to have it set up, you could always send out surveys to your folks, like an assessment, a survey, feedback form, something like that. If you have an assistant or a third party that you would feel more comfortable doing that through, you can have them help you with that process. And you can also, I would just say, as you are working with somebody, to really always be checking in, always letting them know from the start that, hey, like, I'm open if something isn't working or we need to make adjustments, like, please let me know so that you can accommodate whatever needs to be accommodated and you can evolve as you are working together. But if you find to, again, at the end of, if you work with people for a year, if at the end of the year, you find that some people, it's like, oh, this was magic, and others you're like, it was good, but it just wasn't that magic. That's when I would challenge you to actually write out in really fine details, like what was the difference, any differences and any similarities, because it's amazing what you will uncover. And then that makes you better positioned both in your marketing and then when you're on future sales calls, because if you notice that those maybe not so great things are cropping up again, then you can be like, oh, I actually don't think that like this is the right match. I'm going to refer you to somebody else, or I'm going to suggest a different offer. Maybe we don't work together for a year, but maybe we do this like 3-month thing instead.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Another question, this is a good one. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs who know their niche but live in small markets?
Oh, okay. Live in small markets. I would say whatever you can do to be the go-to person for that thing in your market, be that person. Be the person that is like, when you think of big brands that you're like, oh, that's, yeah, like Nike or, whoever, you're just, they are iconic. I would say be iconic in what you do in your area.
Great. And then last question that I like to ask all of our webinar speakers, if folks are to remember one thing and take away from your presentation today, what would you want that one thing to be?
That is such a great question. I would say that think of sales and marketing in two parts, right? So it's connecting with people, connecting with the right people. Again, not just clients, but collaborators, community, things like that. So intentional connection and like respectful, consensual, compassionate, friendly conversation, right? So again, it's never about just connecting so that you can connect long enough so you've got them and then you're going to convert them. It's like, no, it's no strings attached connection. And then just really genuine, friendly, casual conversation. I think that we get really wrapped up in like, I have to have the perfect content and I have to be posting this much and I have to have these keywords, like it can be so overwhelming over on the marketing side. And then on the sales side, it's like, I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be sleazy. I don't want to coerce and all of that. But like when you think about the best buying that you've ever done, right? Places that you rave about, people you rave about. And like, how does that whole experience feel? When you know what feels good for you, try to replicate that in your own business because it will resonate with your people. And I would say just keeping those things in mind and giving yourself enough time to get traction. Like I said, it will pay off. I literally just this morning started working with a client. We were in the same community together back in 2018. 4 years later, like just keep
consistent. Yeah, and keep going. I think that is a great note to end on, Erica. So with that, thank you so much for your presentation today, for this really robust Q&A session. It was awesome and really, really helpful, and we appreciate your time. A few